I was just, looking at what's happening in the UK when it comes to illegal immigration. And I very quickly realized that South Africa is on the way there, where if you are South African and you criticize the idea of open borders and illegal immigration, you are almost looked at as xenophobic, racist, or any other word that describes you as a person who doesn't like other humans. And that thing must be stopped right now in South Africa because we don't want to be able to openly discuss issues that affect us as South Africans because we don't have to apologize for being South African and we don't apologize for wanting to put South Africans first. So I'm done with that nonsense. So before we carry on, please subscribe to this channel, Heartful. This channel is designed for action. So just watch the channel and follow our updates when it comes to the Heartful Patrol Unit. But let me get back to the topic. So when I woke up this morning, I was thinking about how the government puts us in a position as South Africans to apologize for wanting to put ourselves first. And this goes to black people, Indian people, colored people, and white people. We have to stop apologizing for being South African and wanting to put South Africans first. So let me start with the issue of crime. The issue of crime is very, very connected to the issue of open borders and illegal immigration. We have to stop apologizing for saying that. It is very connected that we have people that have come into our country illegally, committing crimes. They are not in our system, cannot be found because they don't exist. We need to stop apologizing for mentioning those facts. We need to stop apologizing for that. I'm done apologizing for being South African, wanting to put South Africans first. Secondly, is the issue of corruption. We need to call the government of the day out. We need to stop apologizing to the GNU. When the GNU came into power and they signed the GNU agreement, everybody was excited. But what I'm seeing right now, it looks like the ANC is buying out everybody else who's in the GNU because the corruption still continues. We haven't solved many, many issues that we had before May 2024. We need to stop apologizing to the GNU because the GNU looks to me like it's selling out to the ANC. It's becoming, the parties that are involved in the GNU are very quickly becoming branches of the ANC. We must stop apologizing for that. I want to circle back to illegal immigration. We need to stop apologizing for calling for closing of the borders. We need to stop apologizing for talking about immigrants that are in this country and causing chaos in our country, including hijacked buildings. We must stop apologizing for that because it's our country and we have to put our country first. We don't apologize for being patriotic. We don't apologize for being South African. We have to put ourselves first. Why would we put anybody else first? And I'm going to mention three other things that we must stop apologizing for. When it comes to access to healthcare, access to education, and access to jobs, we cannot apologize for wanting to put South Africans first in those positions. If when it comes to access to healthcare, South Africans must take first preference. My mother is 72 years old. If she had to use a public hospital, she needs to get first preference because she's South African. She doesn't have to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and get to the queue at 4 o'clock in the morning and only get seen at 11 o'clock and only to find out that there's no medication available because people that are not accounted for were in that queue and took away all the medications we were supposed to get for that day. We are not a rich country. We're a poor country fighting for resources. We cannot apologize for wanting to access healthcare for South Africans first. We don't apologize for that. We must stop apologizing for it because it's our country. The issue of education. Everybody in South Africa has got the right to access education, but we cannot apologize by believing that South African children must get first preference. Why? Because they are South African and we are in South Africa. Most of these countries, especially African countries, there are no human rights. If there are human rights, nobody even applies them to their everyday lives. But when they arrive in South Africa, the first thing they want to do is demand rights. I've got no problem with anybody accessing healthcare or education, but I have a problem when South Africans are put at the back of the queue while they are South African citizens. We have to stop apologizing for that. When it comes to the issue of jobs, I have a very serious problem with companies that insist on hiring people that are here illegally. Hiring an illegal immigrant in your company in South Africa is a criminal offense, and the police must enforce that law. We must stop apologizing to these companies that keep hiring illegal immigrants over South Africans. If there's an issue, put it on the table and let's discuss it. I'm going to repeat the issue of hijacked buildings. If you look at the culture of hijacking buildings, it's not a South African culture. The crime syndicate that is hijacking buildings, the first thing you're going to notice is that they're not of South African descent. Most of them are illegal immigrants. Number two, the tenants that are in there would be mostly illegal immigrants. So you're creating a system where if you are in South Africa illegally, you almost have the right to do illegal activities in this country. We must stop apologizing for that. We must call it for what it is. The same way that we must stop apologizing for calling the ANC stupid, because they are. I don't care if you're white, black, colored, or Indian. We have to call it what it is. We have to stop apologizing for being afraid. We must stop apologizing for telling the people the truth. If you are Indian and you want to call out an ANC member of parliament that they are stupid, you need to do so because it is how you feel. We must stop apologizing. Now, touch on another matter. When it comes to crime, you find that kids can die from food poisoning in the townships. Kids can lose their lives from falling into pit toilets, manholes, and the response of the South African government is so slow, and the people that are responsible for those deaths are hardly ever punished. But when illegal immigrants are targeted in this country for good reason, for example, when an illegal immigrant is running a store and people have died because they consumed the food from that store, which is not compliant, the South African police service is very quick to come and protect that illegal immigrant. I have a problem with that. I'm saying to you that how many people have gone to jail from food poisoning? How many people have gone to jail from the number of young kids that have lost their lives? How many people went to prison? How many people go to prison for hijacked buildings? How many people go to prison for working in this country illegally? We have to talk about it. We have to stop being apologetic about things that are right. I'm done apologizing. So I'm going to talk about farm murder. When it comes to crime, like I said earlier, the South African Police Service is very, very slow to act until it's an illegal immigrant concerned. Look at our farm murders. Farmers in this country have been complaining for the longest time that they have been targeted. And when crime is committed on farms, it is brutal, it is borderline terrorism, and it is done with so much brutality that you start to think that what the hell is going on over there? What happened to people who break into a farm and steal livestock and run away? These people seem to be going into these farms to send a message. These farmers have been complaining for the longest time, yet the South African government, South African police service will never prioritize it. We must stop apologizing for talking about farm murders. It's a serious matter that must be addressed. But if an illegal immigrant is stopped from accessing healthcare or an education institution, the South African police service is the first one to go in there and protect them. Let me give you a scenario. You find a situation where South Africans have taken it upon themselves to block illegal immigrants from accessing a healthcare facility. And then those people call the police. South African police service arrives. Instead of the South African police service coming in there and enforcing the laws, the immigration laws, or calling the immigration officers to come in and enforce the laws. No. They are going to make sure that they focus on stopping South Africans from wanting to enforce the law. Because if you call the South African police service at a situation where an illegal immigrant is trying to access education and healthcare, the first thing you must do is show us your legitimacy of being in this country. And if you cannot prove that you're in this country legally, you should be deported immediately. But instead, the police will get there and then they will do crowd control against South Africans as opposed to enforcing the laws. I've got a very big problem with that. So we must stop apologizing for wanting our country to prosper. We must stop apologizing for wanting our infrastructure to be better. So we have a serious problem where illegal immigration is the cause of our infrastructure being vandalized. where people come in and take out our cables, they take out everything, they're stripping our infrastructure, they're stripping it bare. They don't see it as an infrastructure for them. To them, they see it as a form of income. The reason why when we were growing up in the townships and rural areas and anywhere that you could have grown up, the reason why post boxes were not vandalized because everybody in the community understood that that was a community, the property of the community. The reason why our infrastructure was not vandalized because everybody understood that this is a critical piece of infrastructure that is serving the community. Lighting, traffic lights, any form of infrastructure was important, railways. But then the minute you have an influx of illegal immigration, what happens is that those people don't see it as, because it's not their infrastructure, they don't see it as anything of value. They see it as a form of income. Strip it, weigh it, sell it, and make money and go back home. So we need to deal with these issues. And for as long as we are nice about it, we'll never solve it. Because now what's going to happen now is we're gonna keep bending backwards over and over to a point where we are treated like second-class citizens in our own country, and everybody else who's a visitor is treated like a first-class citizen. What makes an illegal immigrant's rights more valuable than my rights as a South African? Because that's what we see. Everybody knows that we got hijacked buildings. Everybody knows that the border is open, but the government refuses to do anything about it. On top of that, we are not a rich country. We're a country of poor people, majority poor people who fight for resources between themselves. So as South Africans, my message today is this. Stop apologizing for being South African. If you're a white South African, stop apologizing for being white. If you're an Indian South African, stop apologizing for being Indian. If you're a colored South African, stop apologizing for being colored. Call anything that you see as it is. If we have an incompetent government, call it for what it is. Don't apologize for something that don't apologize for calling out the truth. Until we can do that, we have a very serious problem. What's happening in the UK right now is that every time somebody criticizes anything the government is doing, you end up in prison. If you as much as just share a social media post about immigration or anybody that doesn't look like you or something that you're concerned about, you are targeted and taken to prison. So we as South Africans, we have to stand up right now and make sure that we cannot be silenced. If we feel that as South Africans, we have to be prioritized when it comes to government services, social grants, healthcare, education, jobs, we don't apologize for them because it's our country. You cannot have asylum seekers and refugees come into our country and then have their rights more protected than our rights. At what point did their rights become more prominent than ours? At what point did we agree that anybody who's not South African is worth protecting more than South Africans? Why illegal immigrants worth more protecting than farmers? Why illegal immigrants worth more protecting than our kids who die from food poisoning? Why are their lives more protected than our own lives? What is going on? So my message is we stop apologizing for saying the things that are right. We stop apologizing for criticizing the government. We stop apologizing for calling out open border problem as it is. We need to call it out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching Heartful today. But this was just bugging me so much that I had to say it. Stop apologizing for being South African. Stop apologizing for wanting to put South Africans first. Look at our education institutions. Our higher education institutions are full of immigrants that are in charge of departments while we have an unemployment problem. The last time I checked, we had more than 6,000 immigrants working in our government departments. 6,000. Those are 6,000 South African families that could be getting a meal on the table tonight. Why do we look at those people as attractive more than our own? Are you telling me they couldn't find black South Africans who can be dean of department? They couldn't find any colored person who can be a professor at UJ? Are you telling me they cannot find an Indian person who can be a head of department at University of Pretoria? Are you telling me they cannot find a white person who can be a lecturer? How did we get there? So now we end up with a situation where we are taking people to be in charge of our education institutions who come from countries that have failed. You come from a failed country with failed education institutions and a failed education system. But then when you come to South Africa, you get priority to head our departments. How does that work? Where is the logic there? You are hiring people that are coming from countries that are failed, countries that do not even have a system when it comes to running a government. But those are the people that you're going to put in the South African Human Rights Commission to be a head of research. I've got a problem with that. We have qualified people in this country, whether it's in science, any field you can name. South Africans are qualified in those fields. So why are we prioritizing other countries? I've got a very serious, especially when it's people that are coming from countries that have failed. Because if you employ people that are coming from countries that have failed, it means that you are creating a failed country yourself. I've got a very serious problem with that. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day. Until then, stay safe.